Alright guys, so in this video, the previous two we've talked about alley, skinny, drive and turn, where to force our ball carriers, and before that we talked about what I should be doing as an on-ball defenseman in terms of north, south, east, and west. In this video we're going to talk about ones and twos, which is our slide and recovery. I've got here listed sliding to dodgers and also cutting the field, two principles that we need to build on. So we're starting to get back into our team defense now and how we can apply those two first videos to be more successful as a unit. So again, on the left we have our terms: alley, skinny, drive. Remember, alley is what we do to midfield dodgers to take them down the sides. Skinny is against wing dodgers, denying the top hand, forcing them skinny down the pipe on both sides. Drive and turn is against ball carriers or X. We're either making them inside roll so we can slide to them, which would be a turn, and a drive would be, as they get to GLE, I'm envisioning that pylon and I'm driving them to the pylon of the end zone. So if you haven't watched that video called Rules of Engagement, go revisit that and then come back to this video, but that's what we've covered so far. So ones and twos, hedge and fire, eagle and turtle, Rico, and away and bump. Those are things we're going to cover today. But before we do that, we're going to talk about cutting the field. The way I coach it is very simple. We're going to imagine this line through the middle. Okay? So, in terms of alley, skinny, drive, and turn, the way that we pick up ball carriers is designed. If a ball carrier starts on this side of the field as a dodger, we want to keep them on that side. If they start on this side, we want to keep them on this side as well. Okay, we want to force them to angles, not only that are low angles as an individual, but the more important part is where our two slides are coming from and not allow that to switch. And here's what I mean by that. So we're going to go to ones and twos. Let's imagine we had a ball carrier here, and I had my on-ball defenseman like this. My job is to put my butt to the middle and take away that midline and force him in this direction to what we call the alley. The reason that's so important is, number one, if he goes this way, he's gaining angle. If he's going this way, he's losing angle as a shooter. But even more importantly than that, let's say they had another guy on the crease, and this guy is becoming what's called our one, our hot, right? He's gonna fire if this guy gets beat down the alley. So, behind every one, there's a two. And the two is always the furthest away from the ball, which in this case would actually be two people. It would be, let's get some numbers here. D1 is our on-ball carrier, D2 is our one, okay? And then these guys are both our two, because as the ball works this way, they'll both be furthest from the ball and they should be in, okay? The reason it's so important, not only to cut the field because we're going to limit angles and scoring opportunities, is if we let this guy switch back and forth, it changes who our two slide is. So in this situation, our one would do what's called hedging and firing. Hedging we're going to define as taking a 10 to 12 yards slide and making it 7, right? And so this guy never wants to slide flat-footed from here. We don't want to have this guy running full speed down the alley and this guy's like waiting and then just saying, oh, from start to stop, or stop to start, I'm just going to fly out and meet him. Those seconds matter. So he's going to do what's called hedging, and this one, instead of making this a 12-yard slide like that, he's going to try and steal about 3 or 4 yards of that back by starting his slide from here. And as we hedge, these backside twos should also be hedging in, because the further that this guy gets away from their offensive assignments, as this guy goes down the alley, he doesn't need to be guarding him unless there's a rollback of some kind. This guy is losing his angle to shoot, but also losing his ability to find this offensive player as he continues down the alley. So they should be stealing real estate with these twos to free up our one to hedge before he goes, okay? So far, we've got our one, which is D2. We've got our twos, which is D4 and D3. We've shown our hedge, which is taking a 12-yard slide, making it 7. And now we're in the situation where we're going to fire. All right? So fire means D2 has now decided that D1 is beat. So he's here and he's met the ball carrier. Okay? Now, one of the things that you can do when you get there is call Rico. We're going to come back to Eagle and Turtle for a second. Rico is short for recovery, which is what we tell D1. Now that D2 has met the ball carrier, D1 is in a state of, I don't have a guy. And I know that we temporarily have 2 guys on the ball, so I need to get either back to the middle or back to another player and recover, so we're playing even all across the field. So that term for that is Rico. As we get here to away and bump, when you recover, you have 2 options, okay? And it's up to these 2 slides to tell that Rico where he's going. Sometimes you're going to pull that Rico to the crease. Because remember, we're covering the crease temporarily because these guys are not threats as that's happening. So D1 would then come back to the original ball carrier, the original slide guy on the crease, which we're going to call O2 since D2 was guarding him. He's going to get back in, and that act of recovering is going to allow D3 to pass O2 back to D1, and now D1 is hot, and D3 can then work his way back out to his original assignment, which was O3 on the backside. Okay? As that's happening, we've recoed from D1. D1 is going to bump D3 out. Okay? So D2 slid to D1, the original on-ball defender recovers using Rico, and then we bump the 2 back out to their assignment. That's how we use that terminology. Now, let's say, for whatever reason, we're going to rewind a little bit. D2 has just slid to the ball. D1 is about halfway between because he's in the act of Rico. D3 is still in as a 2 slide, okay? And D4 is in as a 2 slide as well. If we wanted to send somebody away, it would be more like O2 popped off the crease and O4 came over, okay, and started a cut. So, in this situation, D4 might want to stay on his cutter as he comes down. In that situation, he could pass the cutter to the recovering defenseman and then bump back out, but he also can do what's called away, which means I've got the nearest guy and I need you, D1, to look away to where I just left. It's away from the ball. Usually away is used at the midfield, where the top side 2 wants to cover a ball cutter, and he's saying, no, I can't leave him because he's got to step on me. I'm not going to pass. You need to just look away from the play, which is furthest from the ball, and find the open guy. So, to kind of summarize everything, we always want to cut the field in half. Okay? We want to force alley up top, force skinny against the wings. We want to drive and turn. Every dodge should have a 1 and a 2. 1 is our hot guy, 2 is the guys that are covering for our hot guy. We always want to hedge and fire. Hedge is taking a 12-yard slide and making it 7. Fire is the act of sliding. Rico is the act of recovery. I was just on ball, somebody slid to me, I'm getting back in. And when I Rico, I have 2 options. I can come to the crease and bump the 2 slide back to the perimeter, or the original 2 is going to stay on the crease and I need to look away. The final element of this, which we'll cover, is Eagle and Turtle are just paces. E is for early. We know there's a Dodger on the other team that's a very good goal scorer. We're going to slide early to them. Turtle, we're not really threatened by the matchup. We're going to wait. We're going to see a little bit slower to slide, see if our defenseman can win that matchup. Okay? The final thing I want to cover is what happens if we don't cut the field. So let's say we had a 2-3-1. X is our offense. Okay. Ball was up top for an alley dodge. We know that we're always going to force skinny on this midline because that allows our defenseman to slide from here. And our D-midi to get down and in as well. Okay, so right now if we slid one from here, we're hedging and firing. We've dictated whether we're going early or late or on time. And our twos are in because we're always coming from away for the ball from our twos. If I allow this guy to go this direction, everything has to change from a team defense perspective. First things first, this guy's angle is getting further away from the dodger. So as X comes down the midline here and goes in this direction, this guy that's getting further away. So it's going to take more time for R1 to slide here than it would have been to just go 7 yards. We've already hedged, we've shown to that side, we want to slide to that side. But most importantly, as the ball comes here, this D-midi is getting back out to his guy. This guy is on the same side as the ball carrier now, so he has to get back out. And all of a sudden, we now have to slide here, and this guy has to sprint all the way from being ball side to now being 2 away. That's a difference of about 10 to 15 yards. So when we do fire, this guy is more likely to be open because that's such a long slide. He went from being halfway out to his guy when he was adjacent to now having to sprint 17 yards because we allowed it to go the other side of the midline. So I don't want to go too far into that because we'll talk Carolina next in the next video. But just so you guys see why all of these things are so important, we got to cut the field and force alley, skinny, or drive, establish our 1s and 2s, because everything after numbers 4 through 8 here, those are all dependent on us keeping the ball in one area of the field while we're doing all those things. We either guard one thing really, really well, or we allow them to do whatever we want and it's chaos. So I just draw that to stress the importance of 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 can only happen if we do item 1, 2, and 3. In our next video, we're going to start covering Carolina, which is our base crease sliding defense. And we're going to continue to build on that. But these terms, these concepts need to be down pat before we can. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let's make sure we're implementing these sliding the Dodgers concepts using that terminology. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.